In our class today, our Spanish lesson, I will show you some useful Spanish phrases for everyday life, for situations when you want to get some food, right? When you're hungry. So these are some useful phrases for learning. Tengo hambre means I'm hungry. But in Spanish, we do not say I am hungry or I feel hungry can be used in Spanish, me siento hambriento, but the most frequent way of saying I'm hungry is I have hunger. That's how we speak in Spanish. Same thing when we want to say we are thirsty, instead of saying I am thirsty, we say I have thirst, right? That's how we speak in Spanish. So, tengo hambre. Tengo hambre literally means I have hunger, right? But it means I'm hungry, okay? Same thing, tengo sed. Tengo sed means I have thirst, and it means I'm thirsty. So when we want to eat something, we say quiero comer. Quiero comer. Quiero comer. I want to eat. Comer is the verb to eat. I want to eat. And always in Spanish we can omit the subject pronoun because it's implicit in the conjugated verb, right? Quiero is the verb to want. I want. We look at quiero and we know immediately that this is conjugated in the present tense and for the first person of the singular, for I, yo. So we can omit the subject pronoun I, yo. So although saying yo quiero comer is okay, it's alright. However, since yo is not necessary, it's redundant already, we can simply say quiero comer. ¿Dónde? Oh, and here I missed a tilde. There, okay? ¿Dónde hay un restaurante? ¿Dónde hay un restaurante? Where is there a restaurant? Right? I'm asking, where is there a restaurant? Un is the indeterminate article for masculine and singular, okay? One restaurant. For our restaurant, un restaurant. Hay means there is. I is there is. But since this is a question, I means is there, okay? So I, it means there is or there are when it is an affirmative sentence, and it means is there or are there when it is an interrogation, right? A question sentence. And in Spanish, the structure of affirmative and question sentences is the same. There is no change. Unless, of course, in this case, we are using a question word, okay? Right? But typically there is no modification in the structure of a sentence for questions or for affirmations. The only thing that changes and that shows us that this is a question or not is the presence of the question marks at the beginning and at the end of the sentence, okay? That's why in Spanish the correct way, the traditional way, is opening the sentence with a question mark, with an opening question mark. In English we do not need an opening question mark because the structure of the sentence already shows us in English that we are reading a question. However, since the Spanish questions have the same structure as the affirmations, we need to open a question mark at the beginning of the sentence to know that this is going to be a question, okay? ¿Dónde puedo comprar comida? Means, where can I buy food? ¿Dónde puedo comprar comida? Where can I buy food? Now look at this. If we remove the question marks here, we will say, ¿dónde puedo comprar comida? Right? We just remove the tilde here. Instead of donde with a tilde, we have donde without a tilde, which sounds like the same when we speak. Donde puedo comprar comida will mean where I can buy food. It's an affirmation, not a question anymore. I'm not saying where can I buy food. I'm saying where I can buy food. In English, we can recognize the question from the affirmation because can I and I can. We change the order of those words. In Spanish, we do not. That's why the opening question mark is important. Tengo sed. I'm thirsty, and literally means I have thirst. Tengo sed. Quiero beber algo. Quiero beber algo. I want to drink something. Algo means something. Beber means to drink, and quiero means I want. Quiero beber algo. Now look at this. If we add some question marks at the beginning and at the end of this sentence, we will be asking, do I want to drink something? Instead of saying, I want to drink something, we will be asking, do I want to drink something? Quiero beber algo. Here we ask, ¿me trae el menú? ¿Me trae el menú? Can you bring me the menu? Although here, literally, can you bring me the menu would be, ¿me podría traer el menú? Or ¿me puede traer el menú? Right? But here in Spanish, we do not need to use the verb can you, right, to ask. We simply say me trae el menú. For example, in English, the affirmation would be, you bring me the menu, right, if we give an order. But we can ask, you bring me the menu. Okay, so that's how we are structuring the question in Spanish. This is the correct and most frequent way of speaking. You bring me the menu. Me trae el menú. To me, bring the menu. That's literally the meaning. Quiero comer esto. I want to eat this. Quiero comer esto. Now, can you bring me the bill if we want to pay at the end of when we finish eating? Me trae la cuenta. Trae comes from the verb traer. Traer means to bring. Like here. Traer el menú means to bring the menu. Trae la cuenta. Trae is conjugated for third person of the singular, for he. But here we are talking to the waiter, right? So it's a you, a second person of the singular. However, if you remember, the polite way of speaking, the formal way of speaking in Spanish is usted, would be the pronoun usted, subject pronoun. And the conjugation for usted, which would be also the second person of the singular, formal, it conjugates like the third person of the singular, like he or like she. So, me trae la cuenta is how we would regard or how we would address the waiter in a restaurant. At a restaurant, if we want him to bring us. Here again, we don't need to say, can you bring me the bill in Spanish? We would just say, you bring me the bill, right? The can you is not necessary. We can add the can you in Spanish. We can say, ¿me puede traer la cuenta? But it's not necessary, so this would be shorter and most frequently used. ¿Me trae la cuenta? If we now remove the question marks, we would have an affirmation. Actually, we would have a command. We would say, me trae la cuenta. That would be an imperative sentence, and it would be a bit too hard, a bit rough. Me trae la cuenta would be like saying, you bring me the bill. Okay? And with the question marks would be, me trae la cuenta? Can you bring me the bill? ¿La propina está incluida? ¿La propina está incluida? Is the tip included? Propina means the tip, right? Propina, 3 syllables. Está is incluida. Incluida, included, okay? So, is the tip included? And as what I told you before, in Spanish we do not change the structure of the sentence to make for the question for an interrogation. So, la propina está incluida literally means the tip is included. You see, it's the same structure for an affirmation, only that we add the question marks and we speak it aloud in a question tone. And our last sentence is, ya no tengo más hambre ni sed. Ya no tengo más hambre ni sed. Ya no tengo más hambre ni sed. Already no have more hunger nor thirst. This would be, now I'm not hungry nor thirsty anymore. Okay? Ya would be already or no more, in this case that we have a negation. Ya no más. Ya no más means no more. Ya only means already, or can also mean now. For example, if we say ya, we are saying right now, okay, like with a sense of urgency. And in this case is I'm not hungry nor thirsty anymore. Ya no tengo más hambre ni sed. So this is the end of the lesson, and I hope that these sentences and phrases can be useful. And if they are not useful just like this, at least they can give you the tools to use these structures and just to build other sentences with whatever you need, right? Combining this with the vocabulary we have seen in previous lessons. So I'll see you next class. Today's lesson I will show you 2 new Spanish phrases. Es fácil and es difícil. That is, it is easy, it is difficult. In Spanish, as I always tell you, the verb already has implicit the pronoun, right? We read the verb is, the conjugated verb for, it's the verb to be, right? And I can see that this is a conjugation for the third person of the singular, for it, right? So we don't need to use a pronoun. Es fácil means it is easy. Es difícil is it is difficult, right? While in English we have to include the pronoun, in Spanish we can omit it. Esto es fácil. This is easy. Esto means this. Hacer aquello es difícil. Hacer aquello es difícil. Hacer is the verb to do in infinitive, right? To do that is difficult. Doing that is difficult, right? When we are stating a rule, right, a general rule, like doing that is difficult, we use the infinitive, yes? Eso no es fácil. Eso means that. That is not easy, okay? In Spanish, when we are negating a sentence, the negative word, the no, goes before the verb, okay? No es fácil. Is not easy, okay? While in English, the not goes after the verb. Sorry, yes, is not. It goes after the verb. In Spanish, the no goes always before. That is not easy. Correr no es tan fácil. Correr no es tan fácil. The word tan means so easy. Running is not so easy. Again, the negation, you see the negation, the negating word goes before the verb to negate. Again, we are stating a general rule, so we use the verb in infinitive. Correr is the verb to run. Correr no es tan fácil. Running is not so easy. Llegar allí es demasiado difícil. Llegar allí es demasiado difícil. Llegar, again, a verb in infinitive, because we are stating a general rule, okay? We are saying reaching there is too difficult. The word demasiado, 4 syllables, demasiado. The word demasiado means too, from too much. So, llegar is to get somewhere or to reach somewhere, right? So, getting there is too difficult, or reaching there is too difficult. Saltar no es difícil. Again, another general rule, another statement, sorry. Generalizing, yes? So we use the verb in infinitive. We are saying to jump is not difficult, or jumping is not difficult. Verb in infinitive, the verb to jump. Saltar. Saltar no es difícil. Again, the negating word before the verb. Esto es más fácil que aquello. Esto es más fácil que aquello. Esto es más fácil que aquello. This is more easy than that, right? So in Spanish, when we are comparing, we don't add a suffix to the adjective as we do in English. We don't say easy, easier, right? We say more easy, or more, whatever adjective we want to use, right? So always the word more, in Spanish más, goes before the adjective. Esto means this. Aquello means that. Esto es más fácil que aquello. This is easier than that. There's For aquello, there is another word that means exactly the same and is as much used. It is the word eso. Yes? Aquello and eso are synonyms, and both of them change their ending whether they refer to a feminine or a masculine noun, or whether it is plural or singular. So aquello will finish in A for feminine, in O for masculine. AS for feminine plural, OS for masculine plural. Same thing with eso, right? It will be esa, eso, esas, or esos. Yes? Also, allí means there. It has two synonyms that are as much used as allí. Allí. The synonyms for allí are allí is equal to ahí. Ahí. Remember that the H is mute, so this is ahí. And this is equal to allá. Allá. Right? These three words mean exactly the same. Allí, ahí, or allá. Aquello can be replaced with eso, right? Because it's the same thing. Hacer eso es difícil. Eso no es fácil, or aquello no es fácil. Llegar allí es demasiado difícil, or llegar ahí es demasiado difícil, or llegar allá es demasiado difícil. All that means the same thing, right? And take a look how the verbs in infinitive always end in an R, right? In Spanish we have three groups of verbs. The verbs that end in AR, the verbs that end in ER, and the verbs that end in IR. So here we have two verbs of the group of verbs that end in AR, and one verb of the group of verbs that end in ER, right? We have spoken about these groups of verbs in one of our first lessons, and each one of those three groups has a rule on how to conjugate the regular verbs, okay? So this is the end of the lesson about es fácil, es difícil, right? This is the phrase I wanted to show you today, or the phrases. So we'll probably see some more phrases, Spanish phrases, in our next lessons. So goodbye. Dear students, today I decided to teach some phonetics so we can see how to pronounce in Spanish correctly the J and the G, or the J and G, right? Letras G y J, that is letters G and J. This is G and J. You have to try to pronounce the sound G, right? Not the smooth sound of the English H. It's not like an exhalation, but it's more like as if it were scratching from behind the throat, right? Like that. Both of them. And there is a difference between J and G, right? Because while J always is pronounced right, G has two sounds, the same as in English, right? When the G is followed by an E or an I, it's the J sound, right? G, he, like in English, J, G, right? And when the G or G is followed by O or by U or by A, right? A, O, U, A, O, U. it is the G sound, like in English. Ga, go, gu. Okay? So let's begin with these examples of words that begin with J, with J, right? We have juego, that is game. Un juego, a game. Vamos a jugar un juego. Let's play a game. You see, this is juego, juego. Scratching the throat. It's not the exhalation of the H, the English H. Jugar is to play, the verb. Remember that Spanish verbs always end with R, right? And we have three groups of verbs. Those that end in AR, those that end in ER, and those that end in IR. Okay? This belongs to the group of verbs that end in AR, jugar. And ajedrez. Ajedrez. Chess, the game chess. Okay, these are some examples on with the letter J, J. Here we have some examples with letter G, G, right? Sounding the same as J, right? When it is followed by letter E or by letter I, right? E. Jengibre, that's ginger. You see, here we have the same sound twice with letter G. Jengibre, jengibre. Girasol, this is sunflower. Girasol, girasol. Schedule is agenda, agenda. And to schedule, the verb is agendar. 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 And letter G, as we said, has the sound G if it's followed by A or by O or by U, right? And has one more particularity. If we want to pronounce the G or G sound, right? If we want to pronounce a G sound, but for an I and for an E, we have to write a letter U in between, okay? Like here. So, if we write this, it's G, but I want to say G, right? So I have to use a U in between, and this U here, this letter U, is mute. So this is not gue, this is ge. Same thing here. This is pronounced he, but I want to pronounce gi, right? So I add a U in between, and this is not gui, this is gi. Okay? The U is mute. So this is guerra or war. Guerra. Guiso, for a stew, to eat. Guiso. Then we have gaviota. Gaviota. This is seagull. Okay? Here we don't have the muted U, right? But for A, O, and U, it's the same G sound, right? Same as in English. Gorilla. Gorilla for gorilla. And agua for water. Agua. Here, the U is not mute, right? We do pronounce the U. Agua. That is because after the U we do not have the letter, neither letter E nor letter I, okay? So it's not a muted U. This is agua, it's a U like here. The G followed by A or O or U is G. Agua, water. And what happens if we want to pronounce the U followed by an E or an I? For example, we want to pronounce in Spanish gue or gui, right? We cannot here because the rules specify that this U is muted. This is guerra, guiso, muted U. So we use these two dots here on top of the U that in Spanish is called diéresis. Diéresis. Diéresis is the name for these two dots on top of letter U in Spanish, and the diéresis is only exclusively used for the letter U in this case, right? We do not have the diéresis, the two dots on top of other vowels like German, for example, that has the umlaut on the A or the O or the U, okay? And how do we use this? Here we have two examples. For example, pingüino, a penguin, yes? Pingüino, here we have U and I, okay? Pingüino, and the U is not muted. If we omit the diéresis, the two dots, this would be pinguino, right? We would be not pronouncing the letter U. But we do want to pronounce it, we want to say pingüino. So we add these two dots. Same for ungüento. Ungüento means ointment. Ungüento, as you can see, we are pronouncing clearly the letter U because it has the 2 points, the diéresis. Ungüento. If we omitted these two dots, this would be ungento. We would be muting the letter U. Okay, so we have many more words with all these cases, but this is enough for you to see how to pronounce the G and the J in all the cases. Letter J is very easy because J always pronounces right, like as if you were scratching your throat, okay? And okay, so here that's all for these two letters. We will probably see some more Spanish letters that may be a bit difficult for pronunciation in English, okay? So this is the end for today's lesson. Today I want to continue with some more pronunciation, showing you how some specific letters from the Spanish alphabet are pronounced. In Spanish we have these two letter I's, right? Actually the I and the Y. In Spanish one is called the Latin I and the other one is called the Greek I, right? So I would be I would be I Latina or Latin I. Y is Y or Greek I. Okay? And I want to show you some examples on how each one is pronounced. Ingeniero, okay? Here we can see how the I Latina is pronounced like just I, okay? This is very, very easy. The I Latina is always pronounced I, right? There is no exception. It's always pronounced the same. Ingeniero. Intruso, for intruder. Intruso. Igual. Igual, for the same or equal. Igual. But the Y, right, the Y, has two different pronunciations. So let's see. When the Y or the Y is written at the end of a word, or just by itself, like here, it's always pronounced E, the same as the E Latina, as the I. It's always pronounced E when it's at the end or by itself, standing by itself. For example, ay or ouch, right? The Spanish exclamation when you say, when you're hurt or when something pinches you or bites you, it's ay, ay, okay? So this Y is pronounced I, ai, ai. This is a word by itself, means the end, right? A and D, the conjunctive word end. This is pronounced I, simply I. That's all, that's the word. Also, here we can see Y at the end of a word, and it's also pronounced like letter I. So this is read I. Remember that the H is always mute, okay? This is I. So this and this, these two words are pronounced exactly the same, right? In written, we can differentiate them because the verb I here has an H, while the exclamation I has no H, okay? So I means there is or there are, and belongs is a conjugation, a special conjugation of the verb haber, to be, okay? Haber, to be or to have. Actually, it's haber is to have, better. So I here, Y is read like I. Here we have a different pronunciation of the letter Y, okay? When the Y is not at the end of a sentence, at the end of a word, but it's followed by a vowel, okay? Then the letter Y always has this other pronunciation, J, okay? Like here, yo. This is yo, I, okay? Yo. Yema, yema is yolk, the yolk of an egg, okay? Yema. So here, letter Y is followed by a vowel in the same word, okay? So it's y, yo, yema, yeska. Yeska is tinder, to light a fire, okay? Yeska. Okay, so it's not this E sound, it's not yema, it's yema. It's not yeska, it's yeska. It's not yo, it's yo, right? In Argentina and Uruguay, those two countries, this case of the Y is pronounced sh, okay? So this will be sho, shema, and sheska, right? Similar to the English SH, okay? Here, another example of the letter Y at the end of a word, okay? So this is pronounced simply I, like the I Latina, okay? So this is read Uruguay, right? Okay, so these are examples, so you can from now on know how to pronounce the I and the Y, the I Latina and the I griega. One more thing before we end this lesson. The letter Y in its second pronunciation, when it's followed by a vowel, many times it confuses many people, even Spanish speakers, because it has the same pronunciation as the double L, okay? So here we have to know that this yema is written with Y and not with double L, because the pronunciation would be the same one, right? However, it's written with Y. Here also, Jeska, tender. Jeska is written with Y, not with double L. Lluvia, for rain, lluvia, is written with double L. It would be pronounced exactly the same if it were written with Y, but this would be wrong. Okay? Same thing as llaves, for keys, okay, or key if we remove the S. Llave is a key. This, you need to know, it's written with double L, y. If it were written with Y, it would have the same exact pronunciation, but it would be wrongly spelled, okay? So that's why many people get confused when to use the Y and the double L. So that's something that you can also only help with memorization of the correct orthography in some vocabulary, okay? Okay, that's all about the pronunciation for I and Y, Y latina and Y. So in today's lesson we will continue doing some phonetics, and this time we will see the letters Q and K, or letras Q y K. Okay? Q, K. First, let me tell you that letter Q, or Q, in Spanish is always followed by the muted letter U. Okay? Always. You have never letter Q in Spanish unless it's followed by letter U. And this letter U is always mute. And the two cases where in Spanish we use letter Q are for letter I and for letter I, or letra E, letra I. This is read que and this is read ki. So why these two cases only? Because we have in Spanish the letter C. Okay? Letter C. The same as in English, letra C or letter C can have two sounds, S, like the S, or K, right? So when letter C is followed by A, O, or U, it has the K sound. When letter C is followed by letters E or letter I, it has a S sound, okay? So, in Spanish, this would be read C and this would be read C, right? But if we want to pronounce the sound que or ki in Spanish, we cannot use a C. So there's that we use the Q. Q-U, que, and Q-U, ki. Okay? So only for those, because for ka, ko, and ku, we don't need Q because we have the C, right? Ka, ko, ku. So letter Q is needed in Spanish exclusively for these two sounds, que and ki. That's why many times in Spanish alphabets, when the letter Q is not alone, not by itself, but letter Q is written like this, right? A capital Q and a lowercase u, to indicate that Q is always followed by a U, and this U is always mute, right? And letter K in Spanish, or letra K, has the same sound as the Q, but the K is a letter that many people don't even consider part of the Spanish language, right? Because all the sounds that of the K, the pronunciation of the K can be replaced by the C and the Q. So it's not needed. So K only indicates an imported word, a foreign word that comes from from another country, from another language, right? An international word like distance measures or weighing measures, okay? For example, kilómetro is written with K because kilómetro comes from the Greek kilo, right? Kilogramo, kilogram. And whiskey, right, means whiskey. Whiskey, since it's obviously an English word that has been accepted in the Spanish language, it has traditionally carried the K, indicating that that is a foreign word that has been adapted, of course, because in Spanish you write it without this E, right? That is common in English. However, also kiosco. Kiosco comes from kiosk, another English word. So it kept the K, indicating that it's a foreign word that has been accepted by the Real Academia Española, the Spanish scholars. However, after some years, the Spanish language has decided to create or to incorporate fully those words into the language, so they have decided to replace the K by a QY, okay? So, kiosco is how it's written or spelled nowadays, with Q, U, and I, kiosco. Although the old way is also okay, right? Whiskey, now it's also written whiskey, right? With G, U, diéresis, I, S, Q, U, I, whiskey. However, whiskey is still used, accepted, and correct. And kilogramo or kilómetro, you can also write it with Q, okay? Total Spanialization, if you want to call it like that. Españolización or castellanización. You replace the K by the QU and you have kilogramo. You can do the same with kilómetro. So kilogramo will be 100% Spanish, but kilogramo with a K is also correct, and actually in most dictionaries you will still find kilogramo with a K, right? So although the Spanish way of writing would be with a Q, many foreign words that have been incorporated into Spanish still use the K, and that's okay. However, because of this particular feature of the letter K in Spanish, that it only signals those foreign words, that's why many people argue that this should not even belong to our language. Okay, these are other examples of the letter Q. We have que or que. This que with a tilde means what. This que without the tilde means that, like for an explanation. He said that he will not come. Okay? Aquí for here. Aquí. You can see that the letter Q is always followed by a U and later either by an E or an I. Those are the only two sounds that Q has in the Spanish language. Okay, so I hope that now it's clear how and when to use the Q and the K or the C, right? So I hope this lesson has been useful, and probably I'll show you next time one more lesson about phonetics. We'll talk about the letter H. The letter H, or H in Spanish, has two pronunciations, the same as in English. In English you have the exhalation, right? And also the CH, that is ch, right? In Spanish also we have the ch when the H is preceded by the C, and then we have the H by itself is totally mute. It's not even an exhalation like English, it's not like that. It's simply mute, as if there were no letter whatsoever. So, letra H is our topic for today. Letra H, letter H. The beauty about Spanish is that once you learn the rules of pronunciation, of spelling, you will always know how to read and pronounce exactly every single sound, letter, word, whatever of the Spanish language. There will never be doubts whether this word should be pronounced with the accent here or the accent there. Never a doubt whether the vowel should be pronounced like this or like that, right? That's the beauty of Spanish. You learn the rules and you will never in your life have one single doubt on how each thing is pronounced, okay? Or written also. And so let's begin with the first case. The H is mute. Hijo and hija for son, hijo, and daughter, hija. Okay? Remember when we spoke about the J? Okay? It's more than the English H. It's actually a rougher sound. Hijo. So here the H is totally mute. Okay? We do not spell it like this. This would be wrong. However, the pronunciation of hijo and hija would be exactly like this. Hoy for today. Hoy. Also mute H. Here the H is also mute. Haber. Aber. Aber, which means to be or to have. Actually, haber, when used like a verb by itself, means to be. Like there is, there are, yeah? But haber has another function. It's the Spanish auxiliary verbs for the compound conjugations, okay? And there it has the same meaning or the same worth as the verb to have in English, because the verb to have is the English auxiliary verb for compound conjugations, right? I have gone, I have ridden, okay? In Spanish we would use haber. Another case for mute H, this time in the middle of the word, ahínco, okay? This H is not pronounced whatsoever. This means effort. Or con ahínco, which means diligently. Diligently with diligence. Or with zeal. Ahínco. Ahínco. 3 syllables. Ahí. There. Right? There. Over there. Ahí. Alcohol. For alcohol. Here also the H has one function. The H is completely mute, but it indicates that these O's should be pronounced, both of them, right? Or like a long O or one O after the other. In Spanish, this would just be O, right? It doesn't change the sound like in English. That would be U. In Spanish, this would be O. But if we put the H in between, it would be O. Okay? O. As if we would say one O after the other one. So this helps us, the H here says alcohol. It helps us to show and indicate that we have to pronounce a long O or a second O after the first one. And here we can see two examples of the H as the second, with the second pronunciation. This is the same as in English. CH, CH is pronounced ch. So this is chorizo, which means sausage. Chorizo. Or another kind of sausage would be salchicha. That is also a sausage, a thinner sausage. Chorizo. Sausage. H. H is the name of the letter H. 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 CH. Ch. Okay? So, because of these two different pronunciations of the H letter in Spanish, traditionally the CH used to be a letter by itself in the Spanish alphabet. So the alphabet would be A, B, C, Ch, D, E, and the F, G, H, I. Okay? So H, the H would be also, of course, one letter of the alphabet. But the CH, since it had a pronunciation of itself, was also included as a letter of the Spanish alphabet. A, B, C, Ch, D, E. However, since the Ch, this letter would be Che. Since the Che actually was compounded by or formed by two other individual letters, right? The C and the H, or the C and the H, then in recent times this has been removed from the Spanish alphabet. So unless it has been added once again, now the alphabet would be A, B, C, D, E, right, without the CH. But I just wanted to tell you this curious thing that before this used to be a letter of the Spanish alphabet, okay? So H, two pronunciations, mute and ch, okay? So, okay, that's all for today. Goodbye. Today we will learn a new phrase in Spanish, and although this is not the friendliest of all the Spanish phrases, still it is very useful and quite important. Frase del día. Frase del día is phrase of the day. Remember that de él, of the masculine, is always shortened to del, okay? Día. Tener la culpa. Tener la culpa means to be to blame, right? Or to have fault for something. Tener la culpa. The word-by-word translation for the phrase tener la culpa would be: tener is the verb to have, right, in infinitive. So to have, la is the feminine definite article, the, right, feminine because it's for a feminine noun. And culpa, which is the feminine noun, ending in A, you see as any feminine word. Culpa means fault, right? Somebody that has culpa, somebody that has fault of something. So it means to be to blame. Here we will see some sentences so we can see how it is used, how the structure is formed to build these sentences using the phrase tener la culpa. ¿Quién tuvo la culpa? ¿Quién tuvo la culpa de que fallara? you see that the verb to have, tener, is conjugated according to the tense, okay? So here, quien tuvo la culpa, tuvo is in past tense, yes? Simple past. This means had. So, who had the blame of that it failed? That would be the word-by-word translation. Or, who was to blame for the failure? ¿Quién tuvo la culpa de que fallara? So, as you can see, the structure, the sentence structure is quite different than English. This would be, again, let me repeat, who had the fault of that it failed? Okay, another example, now in the negative. Yo no tuve la culpa, or yo no tuve la culpa de eso. I was not to blame, or I was not to blame for that. This word by word would mean I know, or I not had the blame of that. Yes? Él tuvo la culpa. He was to blame. Here we are accusing somebody, right? He was to blame. Él tuvo la culpa. Again, here, this is past tense. He was to blame. The word-by-word translation would be he had the blame. Sorry. He had the fault. Okay? Él tiene la culpa. So this is the same thing but in present tense. Él tiene la culpa. He is to blame. Okay? He has the fault would be the word-by-word translation. So many times we speak in Spanish él tuvo la culpa or él tiene la culpa indistinctly, right? For the same case scenario. And we can also say él es el culpable. Here I missed the tilde. Él. Remember that él with a tilde like here, with a line on the E, this means he. Okay? The subject pronoun he. Él. However, if it does not carry a tilde, if we delete the tilde, it simply means the masculine definite article. Okay? El, like the car, el auto. So that's the difference between el with a tilde and el without a tilde. Él es el culpable means he is to blame, but this literally means he is guilty. So, él es el culpable is quite rough, okay, or very harsh, because culpable means guilty. So, él es el culpable, we are accusing somebody very, very harshly. He is guilty. He is the guilty, right? Or the guilty one. Yo no soy el culpable. I not am the guilty or the guilty one. Okay? So, él es el culpable can both mean he is guilty or he is to blame. Yo no soy el culpable can both mean I am not guilty, or I am not the guilty one, or I am not to blame. Right? But it's a bit harsher, okay? But it's also used. However, remember that these two, when you use the word culpable, right, you're using it with a stronger accusatory meaning, okay? Stronger connotation. So that's all. Our phrase of the day, tener la culpa, to be to blame. So I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Today I will show you a new word in Spanish that is both an adverb and an adjective, depending on the use. This word is the word demasiado. Demasiado means too or too much. This is the word demasiado, 4 syllables. Too or too much. Let's spell it in Spanish first. We have D, E, M, A, S, I, A, D, O. Okay? So, demasiado as an adverb, it never changes the ending. It's always ending in O. Okay? And demasiado as an adjective, okay, can change its ending depending on the noun that it refers to. So if the noun is a feminine, it changes from an O to an A, right? And if it's a plural, it adds an S. For example, masculine singular would be demasiado. Feminine singular will be demasiada. You see, it ends in an A. Masculine plural would be demasiados, ending in OS. And feminine plural would be demasiadas, ending in AS, okay, for the typical ending for feminine plural. So, for example, just an adverb, demasiado would be, this is too big. Esto es demasiado grande. Okay, demasiado grande. Let's see. Demasiados will be too many, right? So, demasiado would be too much, and demasiados would be too many. You can see the difference here, countable and uncountable. So demasiado would be uncountable, demasiados would be countable. Also, this can change its ending to an AS if it refers to a feminine noun. For example, if we said too many apples, the word in Spanish for apple is manzana, and it is feminine. So, too many apples would be demasiadas manzanas, ending in AS, okay, because it's feminine. Now, one for masculine would be demasiados autos, too many cars. The word for car in Spanish, auto, is masculine. So, we would say demasiados with an O-S. Now for too little, right, uncountable, we say demasiado poco, right? Demasiado poco. And for countable, too few, we would say demasiados pocos. You see how it ends in an S here, okay? To differentiate countables and uncountables. So let's say, for example, tengo demasiadas pocas cosas. I have too few things, okay? And demasiadas pocas cosas, it ends in A and A, because I'm saying demasiadas pocas cosas, too few things. Things, or cosas in Spanish, is feminine noun, right? So this would change to A, referring to the feminine noun. If the noun were a masculine, it would be demasiados pocos objetos. For example, the word for object in Spanish, objetos, is masculine. Then I would say demasiados pocos objetos, too few objects, okay? So this is enough for the explanation I wanted to give you about demasiado, demasiado poco, and in our next lesson I will show you some few examples and sentences so you can see how this works, and it will be easier to interiorize. In our previous class I showed you the adverb and adjective demasiado here. That means too much or just simply too, okay? So demasiado can work as an adverb or as an adjective. And in the previous class I showed you, I spoke a bit about this word, but now we will see some sentences where here I expect that you will be able to assimilate the meaning of the word and how to use it. So let's begin with the first one here. Remember that in black I have written the translation in English and in blue the sentences in Spanish. And here I have even tried to do a word by word translation, right? So perhaps it's not syntactically perfect in English, but I expect it to be a bit more useful for you. Like here you see it's kind of a word by word translation, okay? I hope it can help a bit more. Let's begin with estoy demasiado cansado. Estoy demasiado cansado. This means I am too tired. I am, remember that in Spanish we can omit the subject pronoun because the conjugated verb always indicates which is the subject, okay? So estoy is I am. Demasiado, too tired, okay? Here I am. This is a male speaking, right? Because we can see that the ending of tired is O, okay? And remember that all adjectives change to male or female, okay, in Spanish. So here, if it were a woman that would be speaking, it would be estoy demasiado cansada. So the ending of the adjective will turn into an A. However, demasiado would remain ending in O because as an adverb, the ending does not change. Ellas están demasiado cansadas. Ellas están demasiado cansadas. They, remember, ellas means they, feminine, okay? They, masculine, would be ellos, and this is ellas. These are women or girls, or can also be objects that are feminine, okay? Ellas están demasiado cansadas. They are too tired, okay? You can see here, cansadas. The adjective refers to a feminine plural subject, right? So it ends in AS. However, demasiado still remains demasiado, ending in O, because as an adverb it does not change, okay? And I mentioned before that in Spanish we can omit the subject pronoun, okay? And if we just omitted ellas and we just said están demasiado cansadas, it would be perfect. Grammatically, syntactically, semantically, that would be perfect. Simply we include the word ellas to specify that we're talking about they, in this case feminine they, okay? Just provides a bit more information, but it's not necessary for the structure of the sentence to be correct. Aquí hay demasiada agua. Aquí hay demasiada agua. Here there is too much water. You see here when when demasiado means too much, or when it works, functions as an adjective, it does change the ending to suit, to match the noun. In this case, agua is singular and it is feminine, right? Agua is water. So demasiada ends in an A, right? Allí hay demasiado poca agua. Allí hay demasiado poca agua. So this is over there, right? Or there. Allí is there. So in English I translated it as over there. I, here H-A-Y, is there is, okay? Comes from verb haber. I, too little water. Over there, there is too little water. Okay? Hay demasiado poco dinero para demasiadas personas. This means there is, I is there is again, too little money for too many persons. Okay? That would be the word by word translation. Hay demasiado poco dinero para demasiadas personas. There is too little money for too many persons. Hay demasiadas pocas cosas adentro de la caja. Hay demasiadas pocas cosas adentro de la caja. So, again, I is there is, in this case there are, because I, in Spanish, the word I can mean there is or there are indistinctly. So just through the context we can understand if this would be there is or there are. Okay? Since here it's plural, okay, we're talking about the things. Okay? Cosas means things. Then we know that this is plural. It's there are. So there are too few things inside of the box. Hay demasiadas pocas cosas adentro de la caja. You see here, demasiadas is working as an adjective. Todavía hay demasiadas pocas personas en la fiesta. Todavía hay demasiadas pocas personas en la fiesta. Still, there are too few persons in the party. Okay? So todavía means still. I know the structure here in English is not correct, right? There are still two, that would be the right thing, but here it's a word by word translation. And our last sentence, aún hay demasiados pocos invitados en la fiesta. Aún hay demasiados pocos invitados en la fiesta. This means still. So, as you can see, aún with a tilde on the U and todavía, these are synonyms, right? Both words mean exactly the same and they can be used in the same cases, okay? So, still there are too few guests in the party, okay? So, as you can see here, just to show you how this changes, both sentences mean exactly the same thing, only that here I use the word guests or invitees, and here I use the word persons, right? And here I use todavía or aún. I just wanted to show you how here we use demasiadas pocas and demasiados pocos, how the ending changes for the different nouns, okay? Because one is feminine, the other one is masculine. In today's lesson we will continue learning some names of family members. Some of the relatives and names that we hadn't learned in the previous ones. So we'll see these uncles, cousins. So let's begin. In our next lesson I will show you some sentences so we can use all these new words, and that way we will be able to remember and register them in our minds. Also, when we do sentences, I expect that by repetition and seeing and reading sentences, you will start getting used to the mechanics and the structure of the Spanish language, okay? Let's begin. Tío is uncle. You will notice that in Spanish, for the male and the female in the same hierarchy of a family member or a relative, we just change the O to an A for the male or the female. So tío and tía would be uncle and aunt, okay? And tíos, we take the masculine and we add an S, and then we have the plural, but indistinctly of a male and female. For example, my tíos, right? When I say tíos, I refer to my aunt and my uncle, okay? So the word tíos, although it is masculine and is a plural for the word tío, uncle, it also stands for my uncle and my aunt, okay, my aunt. So tío is uncle, tía is aunt, tíos would be my uncle and my aunt, okay? Primo is cousin, the male cousin, okay? And prima is my female cousin. And primos would be cousins. The same rule, the same mechanics, you see? We just add an S to the male, to the masculine, and we have the plural that works for both male and female, okay? So primos, although it is masculine, you know it can include also female cousins, okay? Sobrino. Sobrino is our nephew, and sobrina with an A is the niece. And if we add an S here, sobrinos, we have the nephews or nephews and nieces, okay? So also sobrinos is the masculine for nephew, but can also include nieces, okay? Now, padrino is godfather. This is a word that you probably know from the film, The Godfather. So, padrino means godfather, and madrina is the godmother. So we have padrino and madrina. And both the couple of padrino and madrina would be, guess what? Padrinos. We just add an S here to padrino and we have padrinos, the plural, that would include godfather and godmother, right? And the godson, or I don't know if you call it like that in English, but the godson or goddaughter would be ahijado or ahijada, ending with A, right? So the godson would be the ahijado, ending in O, and the goddaughter would be ahijada, ending in A. Notice the H here, right? That is mute. ahijado. Okay, so these are some few names of relatives more, and in our next lesson I will show you some sentences where we can start using these new words, right? And you can see also the structure of and the building of Spanish sentences. This lesson we will see some sentences using the vocabulary that we learned in the previous class. So the new words related to the relatives, right? The names of relatives or members of the family. So parientes, if you remember, is the word for relatives. Remember that the word pariente is a false friend in English because it sounds like parent. However, the Spanish word for parents is padres. Okay, so parientes means relatives. Okay, so let's begin with our first sentence. Yo soy el sobrino mayor de mis tíos. Yo soy el sobrino mayor de mis tíos. This means I am the nephew, oldest or older, of my uncles. Okay, so it will be I am my uncle's eldest nephew, right? Remember that tíos means aunt and uncle. I don't know if it's okay to use the word uncles in English for uncle and aunt, okay? But I don't know any other better word for that. Mis tíos se llaman José y Ana. Mis tíos se llaman José y Ana. My uncles are called José and Ana. Okay? Sus hijos son mis primos. Sus hijos son mis primos. This is their, right? Here we are referring to the previous sentence for the subject, okay? Their, we're talking about mis tíos, right? So their siblings or children are my cousins. Juan es el padrino de mi prima. Juan es el padrino de mi prima. We can also omit the el, okay, the article, and we can say Juan es padrino de mi prima. This would be Juan is godfather or the godfather of my cousin, okay? Prima is female cousin. You can see the ending in A, right? Female cousin. Nicolás es ahijado de mi tía. Nicolás es ahijado de mi tía. This is, Nicolás is the godson of my aunt. Okay, so ahijado ends with an O because it refers to Nicolás. That is a given name for a man. Okay, it's a male, masculine given name. Iré a cenar con mis padrinos. Iré a cenar con mis padrinos. This is, I will go to dinner with my parents-in-law. With my godparents. Padrinos are the godparents, okay? It includes the godfather and the godmother. The padrino and the madrina. So this is a future of the verb ir, the verb to go, right? For the first person of the singular, for yo, I. So iré means I will go. But remember that I've been encouraging you to use this other way of saying the future, right? Why? Because this is, but you don't have to memorize the future tense for every single verb in Spanish, and also this one is very similar to the English future tense, okay? We have, as in English, you have will and the verb in infinitive for the future. Here we have the verb voy, right? And infinitive, yes? Only that in Spanish you do need to learn how to conjugate the auxiliary verb, right? That you do need. So, iré a cenar con mis padrinos. I will go to dinner with my godparents. And the sentence below is exactly the same. I will go to dinner with my godparents, okay? So I wrote this sentence twice so you can see the two different ways of conjugating the future in Spanish, okay? Iré and voy a ir, right? If you haven't, I really recommend that you go to my lessons where I showed you how the future tense is built in Spanish, okay? So that will be very helpful. So this is the end, and I hope it helped you to learn some more names of relatives and also some new sentences in Spanish. In today's lesson I will show you some conjunctive words, specifically conjunciones condicionales. Conjunciones condicionales. These are conditional conjunctions. So we'll see these 5, okay? The first one of all is the most used one, and the second one is also very much used. So, si, entonces would be if, then, okay? Como, as or since. En caso de, in case that or in case of. Okay, in case that or in case of. Con tal de que, as long as. And actually we can include the que or omit it, and that will change the structure of the sentence, and I will show you that later in the example. Siempre que is whenever or provided that. So these conjunciones condicionales are used to connect different parts of the sentence, okay? So now I will show you some examples, one example for each one of these, so you can see how they work, and so I can also speak a bit more of these, okay? So, si comes toda la comida, entonces podrás salir. Si comes toda la comida, entonces podrás salir. If you eat all the food, then you will be able to go out, okay? In Spanish, the verb poder, which means poder as a noun, it means power, but poder as a verb, it means to be able to, right? To be able to do something. So poder is also used like can or may in English, okay? So podrás salir. Podrás is future tense, but future tense is also used as conditional. So then and the condition, right? You may go out. Podrás salir. Okay? Como no lo conocía, no lo saludé. This is a case of an example using como. Since not know him, not greeted him, right? Or since I didn't know him, I didn't greet him. Como no lo conocía, no lo saludé. So conocía is the past for to know, right? To know somebody. And saludé is the past tense for greeting, to greet somebody, right? So this comes from the verb saludar. Now let's see an example using en caso de. En caso de, which means in case of or in case that. En caso de accidente, llame a. En caso de accidente, llame a. And then whatever. In case of accident, call whatever number or whatever person, okay? So this is a word-by-word translation. In case of accident, call. In Spanish you can use llame a, the verb conjugated into the proper person, right? In this case it's you call. Or you can use the verb in infinitive, right? Llamar a, like generic. Now an example using con tal de que, as long as. Con tal de poder ir a la fiesta, vestiré lo que sea. Con tal de poder ir a la fiesta, vestiré lo que sea. Con tal de poder ir a la fiesta, vestiré lo que sea. Take a look here. Vestiré here, after the comma, you see these are conditional sentences. So what comes after the comma, we are using future tense in Spanish because future tense is also used for one of the types of conditional tenses in Spanish, okay? Same as what I showed you here, okay? Podrás is may, right? It's also conditional. Let's see in English here. As long as I may go to the party, I'll dress whatever, okay? Lo que sea is synonym of whatever, right? So if I can go to the party, as long as I can go to the party, I'll wear whatever I have to wear, right? So here you can see the poder means to can or to may, right? Same as here. Okay, let's see our last example. Oh, one more thing here. Con tal de, you see I'm not using the que. Con tal de, and here I use the verb in infinitive, right? This structure works for whatever verb we want to use with con tal de. Con tal de que means the same thing, but if you use the que, then you have to conjugate the verb that follows into one of the conditional tenses. So in this case, if we want to use con tal de que, we would have to say con tal de que pueda. You see, we are using not poder in infinitive, we are using pueda, which is already conjugated into a conditional. Ir a la fiesta, vestiré lo que sea. Okay, now siempre que is whenever or provided that. Let's see the example. Siempre que salgo, llueve, right? Whenever I go out, it rains. Siempre que let's replace it with whenever I go out, it rains, right? Remember that in Spanish, since the pronoun, the subject pronoun is already included, implicit inside the conjugated verb, then we omit it, right? So, siempre que, here what is implied is the subject pronoun I, right? Because I can look at the conjugation of the verb salir, to go out, and I can see it's conjugated for I. And llueve, it is the subject pronoun it that is implied, okay? It rains. Here would be eso, right? However, we totally omit it. We just say llueve. So this is all for today. These are the 5 conditional conjunctions in Spanish, and I hope that these sentences have helped to register the word. Hi again. Today I want to show you 3 Spanish conjunctions. These are conjunction words. The word and, or, and neither or nor. That's y, o, ni. Okay? So, the word for and in Spanish is the y, simply like that, or the e, right? I will show you when it is used, the e. For or, we use o or u. Then ni is neither or nor, and ni siquiera, right? It's a special use of the word ni. Ni siquiera means not even, okay? So, when do we use e for and, right? Okay. The word actually for that means and is the y, the y, right? For all words that follow it except those that begin with I or with hi, okay? So, for example, if you want to say hijos, hijos e hijas, okay? Like here, hijas e hijos, okay? Daughters and sons, right? Since hijos begins with I, right? Then, in order so as to avoid the double sound I, hijos, then we change the Y for an E, as you can see here, right? Just to avoid this EE, okay? Same thing as in English with the word a, right? You don't say a apple, you say an apple, so as to avoid a, okay? Same thing with or. In Spanish it is the word o. When the word that follows the o begins with o or with ho, then the o changes for a u, okay? Like here, brazos u hombros. That means arms or shoulders. I want to show you this. I use these 2 examples to show you how it's the same if the word begins with o or with ho, because the h is totally mute, right? So if it begins with h, the sound begins with the pronunciation begins with o, right? So this is hombros. That's why we also change the o for a u. So let's read each of these 7 examples, these 7 sentences. Esto y aquello. Esto y aquello. This means this and that. You can see that since we begin with a letter that is not an I or an HI, then we use the E, right? So for any other letter except I or HI, we will use E for end. Hijas e hijos. Here HI, so we change the E for E. As in here. Here it's not HI, it's simply I. Comercio e industria. Comercio e industria. This is commerce and industry. Now with O. Este o aquel. Okay? This one and that one. See that since this word aquel begins with a letter that is neither O nor HO, then this remains O. Okay? Take a look how this is esto y aquello means this and that. Este o aquel means this one or that one. Okay? So this one, that one. See, look at the difference between these. Okay? Take a look at the tilde here. Okay? Same thing here. There's a tilde here on the E. Tigres u osos. That's tigers or bears. Since the word bears begins with O, right, with the letter O, then we change the O from OR into a U, and we say tigres u osos instead of saying tigres o osos. So here we have brazos u hombros. These are arms or shoulders. Same example as here, okay? H-O. Now for ni siquiera means, ni. Ni means neither, and ni also means nor. So this is a typical example. We say, no quiero ni esto ni aquello. Right? Remember esto and aquello. Esto, aquello means this and that. So, no quiero ni esto ni aquello means not want, I. So the subject is I, because we can see implicitly in the conjugated verb, we can see that the subject that is implicit is I. So this means I not want neither this nor that. I want neither this nor that. In Spanish we negate twice. Not want neither this nor that. Okay? And we are missing ni siquiera, right? Ni siquiera means not even. So I wrote these two examples. Ni siquiera lo viste. Ni siquiera lo viste. That means not even saw it. Not even saw it would be the word-by-word translation. Yes? So where is the subject? The subject is here in the verb. Viste, I look at it and I know that viste is the simple past tense of the verb ver, to see, for the second person of the singular. That is for you. So this means you didn't even see it. Not even it you saw. That would be word-by-word translation. Not even it you saw, or you didn't even see it. Then, ni siquiera estudia. Not even studies. Okay? Here, the same thing as here. I look at the verb conjugated verb and I immediately know that this verb is in present tense for the third person of the singular, yes. So this is he or she. So this means this is not even studies, right? Or he or she doesn't even study. So this is a typical basic structure for using ni siquiera, not even. So typically ni siquiera goes at the beginning, right? And then we have the verb. And then we can have any predicate we want. In this case, where there is an it, okay, the it would go here before the verb, okay. And remember that the subject we can intuitively get it from the conjugated verb, okay. Not intuitively, but by practice we can determine the verb, the subject from the verb, okay. Hi again. Today I want to show you the verb abrir, that means to open. We will see several conjugation, at least the most used conjugation, okay? We will conjugate the verb abrir into present, simple past, the two types of future and imperative, okay? So these would be the most used verbal tenses, okay? So the verb abrir belongs to the group of verbs that end in ir, er or ir. If you remember, we said that in Spanish we have three groups of verbs: those that end in ar, those that end in er, and those that end in ir, right? So ending in ar or er or ir, okay? So the group of verbs that has more irregular verbs is this one, the ir, okay? However, abrir is a regular verb, and so it will help to see how to conjugate the other regular verbs that end in ir, okay? Remember that there is a different rule for conjugating the verbs in Spanish depending on which group the verb belongs to. So this one belongs to the verbs that end in ir. So verb to open in present tense. Let's begin. Remember, yo is I, tú is you, él, he, ella, she, nosotros, we, vosotros is you plural, used in Spain. Ustedes is you plural but used in Latin America. And ellos means they, right? So, and although vosotros and ustedes are synonyms, however, ustedes, the conjugation is the same conjugation as with ellos, okay? Well, let's begin. Yo abro, tú abres, él abre, nosotros abrimos, vosotros abrís, ustedes abren, ellos abren. So this is for the present, okay? Let's go to the past. Yo abrí, tú abriste, él or ella abrió, nosotros abrimos, vosotros abristeis, ustedes abrieron, ellos abrieron. Let's go to the future. Remember that in Spanish we have two ways of building the future. One of them is here. We have the subject pronoun and the verb, right? Okay, the verb, a conjugated verb that already has a conjugation, different conjugation for each one pronoun, okay? The other one, the one I've been encouraging you to use, is similar to the future tense in English, where we use the auxiliary verb will, right? And then the verb in infinitive, okay? So in Spanish, this future tense is very similar. We use the auxiliary verb to go, or ir, but conjugated, right? Then we use a, which means to, and then the verb in infinitive that we want to conjugate. So let's begin first with this one, right? Let's see. Yo voy a abrir. I will open, right? Tú vas a abrir. You will open. Él va a abrir. He will open. Nosotros vamos a abrir. We will open. Vosotros vais a abrir. You will open. Ustedes van a abrir. Also, you will open, but as spoken in Latin America. Ellos van a abrir. They will open. So, although this one can look a bit more complex than this one, however, you don't need to learn how to conjugate every single verb that you want to say into future tense. You only need how to conjugate this auxiliary verb, okay? And then, whatever verb you want to conjugate, you use it in infinitive as here, okay? So it's much easier to use this future tense, okay? Let's use the other future tense. Yo abriré. Tú abrirás. Él abrirá. Nosotros abriremos. Vosotros abriréis. Ustedes abrirán. Ellos abrirán. Okay? Let's do the imperative now. Imperativo. So in imperative, it makes no sense to have I, okay, the first person subject pronoun. So we omit that. We start with you, with tú. Tú abre, or abre tú. Él abra. Nosotros abramos. Vosotros abrid. Ustedes abran. Ellos abran. Okay, so this would be the imperative. So if I want to say to you open the door, or just open the door, I would say abre la puerta. Abre la puerta. If I'm talking to us, and I want to say open the door, I would say abramos la puerta. Let's open the door, okay? Talking to us. Let's open the door. Abramos la puerta. If I want to talk to you in plural, you plural, okay? I would say abrid la puerta. You know, as you can see, we always omit the subject pronoun because the subject is always implicit in the verb. I would say abrid la puerta. That means you open the door. Or if I'm in Latin America, I would say abran la puerta. You open the door. And if I want to say they open the door, I would say abran la puerta. Ellos abran la puerta. Okay? Now take a look at these similarities. In the imperative for the second person, for you, is exactly the same as present for the third person, okay? So for we, it's similar, only that we change the I for an A here, okay? Right? Vosotros, for you plural. You see, here, abrid, we change the S for a D, right? And for ustedes and ellos, also, look, you see abren and abran, we change the E for an A, and we have the imperative. So you just take a look at these similarities, and this applies to all the other verbs because this is a regular verb, right? So this can be taken as a rule. So look what has changed, or what it is like with the present tense, and you can see how the imperative is built in Spanish. Okay, so this is the end of this lesson, conjugating the verb abrir, and we will continue with some more verbs later on.